welcome back to another episode of The Missing Link, brought to you by Rapplane. Today we got a very special guest, Joe Solis, owner of Image Graphics out of Houston, Texas. How are you doing, Joe?
I am doing well, sir. How are you, sir?
Doing very well. Just getting over a little bit of the flu, but doing well here.
Wait, the flu's still real?
Yeah, apparently. I got something. I just kind of toughed it out and drinking a lot of water and keeping at it at work here.
Yeah. I caught COVID back in when Delta first hit, and I was down for probably about 14 days. But it was I don't get sick very often. I don't think my body has a tendency to. I guess because I'm so high strung for the most part with dealing with business and everything else, it doesn't have time to get sick. It gets sick when I relax, and then I don't relax very often. So therefore, I was kind of scared when I went on the cruise just recently because I didn't know if I was going to come back to being sick.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't relax recently. Didn't you just go on a cruise? How was that?
It was good, man. It, and I was so unnerved by it just because, I mean, it was my wife and I's first adult vacation. I mean, I've been on vacations when I was a child, but I've never really been on one as an adult. We travel a lot. I mean, guys like you and me, we go to RapsCon, we go to SEMA, stuff like that. But people don't realize that, and that's work. I mean, when we're there, we're networking, we're talking, we're trying to get as many contacts as possible. Um, we're watching, we're observing. So it's not, we're not in Vegas taking in all the sites. We're not in Long Beach or Indianapolis, going and having different things. We're working. So um, even though I travel a little bit, I don't have never really taken a vacation. So this cruise was basically no work at all whatsoever. I even committed to no social at all.
Nice.
I think I posted a couple of times on Instagram, but it was more like a story. But other than that, man, we had a really, really good time. It didn't seem to go as fast as I thought it was going to go.
That's good.
And so I really enjoyed that part. But the cool part about it is, I think I was talking to Matt Berg, I think, and he was saying that it'll make you want to plan the next one, like as soon as you get back. And that's kind of what we're starting to do now and taking some time off. So it was really good.
Nice, nice. Any tips on turning off the shop owner mentality and actually being present with your family there?
Honestly, man, that was the biggest thing that I was worried about, is not being able to turn it off.
Yeah,
The
that's something I struggle with. Like trying to be present for my family when I leave here.
Yeah, well, I don't know. See, for me, I think it's a little different. Um, I mean, I'm 52, so for me, I've heard the different gambits. You've got to be committed to this. You've got to not have, work-life balance is a myth. All this other stuff. My father passed away in January 2020, and when he passed away at 74, um, some realizations hit me, and that was one of the ones was we don't know whether we're guaranteed to borrow or not. So we've got to kind of figure out what's important to us. And if work is important to you, and if making $1 bazillion is important to you, man, by all means, go do that. Michael Jordan, I read the book Relentless, and his sole focus was be the greatest player of all time. And so his family life suffered, his personal life suffered, but his professional life was amazing. So whatever is important to you, to do that. So for me, um, the work life balance is new, but I also have surrounded myself with amazing people. My wife understands how much this business means to me. My family understands how much this business means to me. I'm actually getting to, and I say this very lightly, but mentor my daughter in her entrepreneurship because she's a barber, and so I've actually outfitted a room above my shop as a barber studio for her, and so it gives her an opportunity to kind of have some ownership in it. But She has my first grandchild was born 7 months ago, and so that's her baby. So she's trying to figure that part out as well. So again, like I said, everyone's different. But for me, when I went on the trip, back to circle back to the long-winded answer, um, I just tried to be like a child and just be in awe of everything that I saw.
Nice.
This big freaking hotel on water, seeing blue water for the very first time. Like I've never seen. I mean, we live in Galveston, so we live in the toilet bowl of the Gulf, and so everything is brown down here. The sand is horrible. So I've always wanted to see blue water, crystal blue water, light beaches, stuff like that. So when we got to Costa Maya, that was it. So all I did was just try to take it all in. I did take a lot of pictures, just to remember it. But I really just tried to be present with that part and just hang out with my wife. We went with my sister in law and her brand new husband. So we just trying to just take it all in, and try to really get a memory that I could remember and just kind of delve in when I need to.
Nice, nice. That's good to hear. All right, so let's get into the business ownership. How and why? How'd you get into the industry, and why are you still here?
Okay, so heard lots of interviews. Moody Blues Brothers were like they always guys that have been in the industry less than 10 years. Um, they make me smile because they came in when rapping and doing all this stuff with cars is cool. When I got into it 7 years ago, rapping or being in the sign industry was always by accident. You never went to a sign shop because you wanted to aspire to be the next sign guy. You always just went to it because you either liked art of some form, needed a job. Well, for me, um, I was a big architecture guy. I mean, I took 6 classes of architecture in high school from freshman to senior year. That was my goal, was to be an architect. Um, I didn't have really good grades in high school, so I ended up going to junior college just to try to figure out if I could get all that better and then go to a university. And ended up going to a junior college about 35, 40 miles southwest of Houston. And the only drafting classes they had were engineering classes, drafting technology as a whole. And so I'm not real good with like numbers and letters that equal numbers and things like that. So engineering wasn't my thing. So was in trouble in school as far as academics. So the second year that I was at school, I took some art classes, quote unquote bluff classes, and since I liked art a lot, I took those classes. Well, I took a commercial design class, and my teacher had told me, why didn't I think about commercial design? So I never thought about it, got into it, ended up going to the Art Institute of Houston, um, spent a ton of money on really no education, and then needed a job. So my dad was a police officer in Stafford, which is again a little suburb of Houston, and he knew a guy that owned a sign company, but they were more of an architectural sign company. Well, all I heard was architectural, and so I thought that they were the same thing, and they weren't. But I ended up being their art director, and all I was doing was virtually was being a glorified puzzle piece maker. So I just took floor plans of tall office buildings and made egress maps that they were etched into the elevators or with the little panels by the elevators, and so that's all I did. Worked for them for about 2.5 years, and then ended up going into the commercial sign industry, which is big pylon signs, storefront signs, channel letters, stuff like that. I started doing designs and layouts for them, and then um, went into the commercial sign industry, more of the one-day banner sign. So um, my first 4 year into vehicle graphics was I started moonlighting and doing race graphics on dirt cars. And a couple of friends of mine had a few dirt cars that were running around, so I started doing dirt cars. It started with simple letters, and then I was doing probably either 6 to 7 overlay colors on different characters, and I was doing theme cars back before people knew theme cars were ever a thing. And so in 1996, really got into the whole design, doing spot graphics. Back then we called them RTA graphics on race cars and things like that. And then in 2000 or 99, 2000 was when I opened up Image and I did my first wrap. My first wrap was on a Scion XB and it took me 15 and a half hours. And then after that, just one thing led to another. Got mentored by some really awesome guys that have since passed away, but just amazing people that taught me a whole bunch about doing wrapping. So fast forward to 2023, we're 23 years old. We're still, I would say, an infant company just because, man, the way I built my company was completely bass-backward. I built it from the top down. And so I think I've got a really good house, but I'm on the worst sand possible. So what I've done over the last probably 3 or 4 years is actually the last 2 years is put the house on stilts, and now I'm rebuilding the entire foundation to be able to put it back down and have a solid from the bottom to the top. I did everything fast afterwards. I really, really did.
Actually, I'm glad you said that because it seems to be a recurring thing that as I talk to more people, like this business side is something a lot of people haven't realized. Like it's its own skill, but it takes a lot to get it right. And
Yeah,
a lot more
and
people are focused on it.
the funny part about it is, they always say go get a mentor, go get a coach, because like that. Well, I've gone through a number of them, um, and the one thing that I've realized is I think the one pivotal question is where are you now? And I think a lot of coaches and a lot of mentors and a lot of people that really want to help, they never ask that question because they always want to get to the tactical side of things. They always want to get to the nuts and bolts of action. But it's like when you go into a mall and you've never been into the mall. Like if you go into Mall of Americas, that thing is huge. You have to go to the place where it says, where are you now? To be able to find out where you want to go. Or you could just meander around and have no direction. But I've never been asked by a mentor or coach, where are you now? Let me see your P&L. Let me see what you're doing. Show me your systems and processes, all that stuff. I think if you do that, instead of implementing different tactics, I think you may have to take a few steps back to get all those things in line. But I think once you get those in line, I think your coaching and your mentorship would go so much faster than if you would just do what most people do. I talked to one guy one time, and he actually was very honest with me. He's like, "You're not big enough for me to coach just yet." He goes, I need you to do X, Y, A, B, and C. And so those were those things that I was talking about. And when he told me that, it made so many things more light, that a lot of work comes from the person that's asking for the help. But at the same time, if they don't know what to ask for, then what happens is they just get frustrated like I did and just don't understand these tactical things. And so they go backwards. One of my shortfalls was business acumen, just understanding terminologies. And so I would be with these coaches and they would just be popping off all these terms. And after a while, you just kind of go, okay. And then you're not getting anywhere. So I think for a lot of people, that's a huge important, like you said, understanding business is different than wrapping a car.
Yes.
It just is. It's like the X's and O's before the quarterback throws the play. And so if you don't have the right X's and O's throwing the play, you're just throwing the ball into the stands. So
Yeah, and I like the analogy about the Mall of America because when you said that, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I started. I was just meandering around. I didn't figure out where I was and where I needed to go.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. And anybody who has a business, and again, I've been doing business for 23 years. At the same time, I've been playing business for the first 18 years. So you can go around. I tell people all the time, this is my favorite story. In 2008, when all the shit hit the fan and everything went downhill, I had no clue it was going downhill. I probably should have shut my shop down, walked away from it, gone and been an employee somewhere else, or tried to start something else. But I had no clue. So I was completely ignorant to the fact that this recession hit. So I just kept just trudging through. I mean, it was what it was. That was probably the blessing. The curse is I'm at where I'm at right now, 23 years later, and I'm still one and a half employee, like me and another guy. So it's there's 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 things that I could have done a long time ago where I would have been completely different here, or there's things that now that I'm learning now that I think maybe I wasn't ready for then. So I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm always grateful for the challenges as much as the successes, but for me, it's one of those things where I'm just trying to learn now. I can't do anything about the last 23 years. All I can do is focus on the things that I do on a day-to-day basis.
Nice. With that said, what advice would you give to somebody entering the industry?
Go work for a company, at least for a year. Just because there are so many guys that can get on YouTube, can go out there and do this. And the thing about it is, I was listening to something the other day, and the level of complexity that you have coming into this business now as a rapper or as an installer is so much different than when we had 20 years ago. The materials are different, the tools are different, the industry as a whole is different. You can watch videos all day long, you can play with the stuff, you can go out there and you can get the material. The material is so forgiving now that it's laughable at times. There are some materials that are more aggressive than others, but for the most part, if you get some of the higher end materials of some of the materials that have been around for a while, KPMF, Orful, I mean Avery 3M's a little shaky right now, but all those films they work with you if you really just understand basic physics. And so I would say go work for somebody for a year, 6 months minimum. Go work for somebody for a year. Let them teach you. They're teaching you on their dime. That's the part I mean, why wouldn't you go work for somebody that you're getting a guaranteed pay? At the same time, all the material that you screw up, you're not paying for unless you do it a lot and they end up firing you. But at the same time, all this material and then all the wisdom that comes with those guys that are around you, that's the biggest thing that I would tell somebody that's coming into the industry. Just go work for find a company that's reputable, not some fly-by-night company that they've only been in it for a year. Well, find a company that's reputable, work on there, pay your dues, do all that stuff. Do the hard removals, do the sweeping of the shop, do all that stuff. That way, when you have your own stuff, you'll be able to know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. I like that. And then also just kind of working in shops like through the years, for me, I've seen like the things to do and the things not to do. I've seen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like the shops that are doing well, I try and mimic what I saw those owners doing. And the shops that weren't, I try and avoid those pitfalls there.
Oh, absolutely. I even ask my guys now. I was like, hey, what do you see that you don't like? What do you see that you don't that's not working? What do you see that could be more efficient? What do you see that we could get better at? I'm constantly asking for feedback. Some things they'll say, and I'm like, okay, this is why we do it that way, and I can understand where you're coming from. And other ones, I'm like, yeah, I would have never thought about that. Yeah, we need to do that. Let's go ahead and try to do that. I don't know it all. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, but there's other guys in this industry. Look at Preston Jordan. Like the way he raps is just mind blowing. But he's been rapping less time than I have, but there's something that clicks with him that he sees differently. And so I just watch him. When I see him at a show, I'll ask him questions. I'm like, hey, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? So it doesn't matter whether you've been in 2 years or whether you've been in 30 years. You can always learn something from somebody else. And I just try to take that as much as I possibly can and just try to keep learning. I mean, I'm, like I said, 23 years into the industry as far as image is concerned, and I'm still going to classes, and I'm still going. Everybody always asks me, "You just go test?" No, I go to the classes just to find out what the media is telling me, or what's something that these instructors that use this media all the time and that are in the back rooms understanding and learning and stuff, what are they finding out? So I mean, like I said, constantly learning for me is huge.
Along with that, what advice do you think should be ignored? This is always a hard one for people.
um I have a big it's not an issue. I
You are
just
welcome to skip it if you
no,
prefer.
no, it's I'm trying to word this correctly. I have a I don't think everybody has to be aggressive. I don't think everybody has to be um, hyper focused on just, I think people can come in and be a nice person and be a nice guy without having some killer instinct and be able to be good at what we do. Um, I don't think that you have to be all in a certain part. I just think you have to be all in you on you. That's the biggest thing that I actually read something this morning, and it said just be all in on you, like be authentic. If you're one of these guys who can sell ice to Eskimo, cool, do that. But you can't make somebody who can't or who doesn't do that authentically and try to make them do that. One of the biggest problems that I have is that you can overcome any objection. I think that's horseshit. I don't like. You can come into my office all day long. If I'm not in, if number one, if I don't have the money, nor if I need the service, there's not an objection you're going to be able to overcome for me. So I think honestly, I think that it just all in on yourself would probably be the best thing, and not anybody can do like you don't have to like be like everybody else. I guess.
Okay, I like that. What are one to three things that differ in your role now compared to when you first entered the industry?
Um, One, I'm focused more on data and numbers in the business. Two, I'm trying to get myself out of the bay more days than I'm in the bay. Um, Three, I'm more focused on growth and scaling as opposed to just daily operations as far as what happens in the bay. That's probably the biggest things that I'm focused on now that different compared to when I was in the industry. When I was in the industry, I never thought in all the years that I would ever have had this company that I would ever sell it. Um, my brother-in-law and I used to talk about being on that show, The Profit, and Marcus Lemonis coming in and getting 51% of the company. And I'm like, well, man, look, if I can build this company up to where somebody wants to buy it for $2, $3, $4 million, yeah, we can go there. Because at that time, I think that you can develop another business the same exact way. That's the one thing I'm actually learning is that if you understand business, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you can always build. And
Yes.
so for me, I was always of the mindset that rap was my industry and rap was what I was focused on, as opposed to being a business owner. And I think that's completely changed. Whereas now I want to learn how to be a business owner again to help my daughter with her barbershop, to help my brother-in-law with his food truck. Like I want to be able to do that as opposed to just being somebody in the rap industry who installs rap.
Nice. How has past failure or perceived failure set you up for success later in your career? And what steps did you take to turn that into a success?
Man, year 14. Went through a very emotional divorce from my ex-wife, and I was about to quit. I was about to just shut it down. Didn't want to do it anymore. Didn't have any passion. Didn't. I can go back and I can tell you exactly when I was designing and what designs were in that period of time, because they were just funky, man. Like the stuff that you see on the side of the road and go, ooh, yeah, that's what I did. I ended up I ended up leaving my ex-wife with the apartment and all the amenities that went with that. And I ended up I either slept in my truck, I slept in my shop, or I slept in a hotel. And the only thing I could do when I was at my shop, working till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, sleeping on the floor, was um, that to just work. And so I started diving more into design concepts and just different things like that, which kind of made me fall in love with it again. And so that utter distress of just being a failure in the industry, being a failure as a husband, stuff like that, um, I turned it into an opportunity to try to do something different. From that day forward, um, I decided that I was going to change some things. I In 2016, um, up until 2016, I never knew there was a Raps Con. I had heard of SEMA maybe once or twice, but I thought it was like one of those things where only certain people could go to it. I never really understood how big the rap industry was. In 2016, I set out um, to meet 4 people, and I even told my brother-in-law, I said 4 people I'm going to meet, 4 people I'm going to contact, I'm going to meet. Kevin Kemp, Nick Caminetti, Justin Pate, and John Duber. There was a fifth one, but I can't remember her name for the life of me. But the only people that I haven't met is her. And so Kevin and I are really good friends. And it was funny because I had heard his podcast on another podcast, and we were talking, and I had shot him a message on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. And he called me. And all I wanted to do was ask him one simple question. We were going through kind of a breakup. One of the guys just left me, and I was just wondering. I was like, how is it? How is it to lose somebody like that that's been with you for a long time? Well, I had been trying to get off the call about 20 times because I didn't want to take up his, like, dude, Kevin Kemp is the GOAT. So I was just trying to not take his time. But he was the nicest guy. Probably one of the most just nicest, talkable. You can ask him anything and he'll tell you straight from his heart, completely authentic. And so when I did that, I met those people, my whole world expanded. And so, I've been very fortunate to meet a bunch of guys that are like studs in the industry, and actually have their numbers in my phone and be able to call them when I need to talk with them. And, when they see me at a show, they say hello. I don't have to walk up and say, hey, do you remember me? And so that's the one thing that I've really, really understood about this community and our industry is, although there's some some black smudges on what we do just because of the level of skill it takes to get into the industry, there are some amazing people in this industry, and I'm honored to be able to talk with those guys when I see them at a show.
Yeah, I've been noticing that recently between this and even exhibiting that people are willing to give advice. All you have to do is ask, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've only had one person tell me that this stuff was proprietary, but I kind of just shook it off and was like, okay, that may be a business thing. I don't know at the time, but other than that, I mean, God, I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, Troy and Joe Downey, like the guys that were from Rap Club, they're, man, the nicest guys. They'll sit there and they'll talk to you and look at you in your eye. Justin Pate, same exact thing. He has a huge smile when you walk up to him. Troy Yates, Keith Boo, like all these guys, have not had any one of them say, hey, man, I mean, I walk up to Jim Miller and I'll ask him a question and he's like, how much time you got? Because they're just those people, Matt Richard, Dallas Fowler, those guys, man, it's incredible to walk into their shops and then just to hear them talk about their stuff. And so it inspires me every time I talk to them because I call them friends because they're that way. And when they're there for you, everybody's busy. They may not answer the phone call the first time, but they'll text you back. Hey, I'll call you back in a minute. And they call back. And I think it's super awesome to be a part of an industry like that.
Nice. What non-monetary investments, personal or in business, have you made that set you up for success today?
I think the biggest non-monetary investment that I would probably say is just learning personal discipline. I think that's something that I came into really late. I really wasn't a high-level athlete, when I was younger or anything like that. I played sports, but not at that level where you see kids nowadays doing it. But so the discipline wasn't always there, but I have noticed that when I really buckle down on discipline, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, going and working out, doing things like that, I think it doesn't really show sometimes, like when you're doing it day to day, because you don't really see the increments that you're doing. But I think over time, if you start making journals and things like that, just different things, I think you find that you start expanding your time frame. Everybody only has 86,400 seconds in their time a day, but you can expand that by just being disciplined and not meandering around the mall, if you will.
Yep. Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, just exercise in general has proven to help your mood, help your mind. I see it in myself. I try and get to the gym like you do early in the morning and leave the afternoons open for family
Yeah,
time.
I can't go in the evening. Number one, I don't like the crowd there at the evening. They're just
Yeah,
it's number one, it's too crowded. Number two, they're not there to work out. Number three, it's just a different monster. I'm having I'm having full hip replacement in 2.5 weeks on my right hip. So I haven't been able to work out as much as I want, and it kind of concerns me because I'm going to be down for a little bit after that. But the doctor said within 3 months I should be able to do a full weighted squat. So I'm super excited about that because I'm going to really ramp into um, getting into that part of getting back into that part of waking up at 4:30 and going into the gym and really getting after it. I do like the way it makes me feel. Don't always want to do it, but I do like the way it feels when I'm walking out of the gym.
but even something as simple as like I found recently, because I got hurt not too long ago, is something as simple as walking or biking. Like
Yeah,
something just getting the blood moving, just getting out and doing something and sticking to
absolutely.
that schedule.
Right.
What is something relatively small that you've included in your products or services that has made a significant impact?
Um, we took a note from Chris Ulmer's playbook, and we offer a ceramic wash after our wraps. Sometimes it's $99. Sometimes our good clients, we just throw it in. But once we do that, it gives them a little bit of an incentive of that. For us, we've changed our philosophy from um, just in and out, wham bam, thank you, ma'am, to being providing more of a customer experience. Um, and so with adding in those small little perks for our clients, I think goes a long way, and they really really like um, they like feeling like they're getting taken care of.
Hmm. And then that also leads, do you do full ceramic coatings on wraps?
We do full ceramic coatings on wraps, and
That's
then
a,
that's something that we haven't really pushed a whole bunch. But again, when we talk to people like Chris and Matt, they're all they it's amazing how much money you leave on the table that you're not thinking about because you're so focused on wraps. And so, um, slowly but surely, like I said, it's very difficult to lift a house up and build a foundation. At the same time, all these new things are coming in that go with the house. And it's like you're trying to redecorate the house at the same time you're building the foundation. And that's kind
yeah,
of where we're at. So it's like I'm juggling chainsaws sometimes, just trying to
gotcha.
balance it all.
Yeah, we kind of use that same concept of throwing in the free, the 2 to 3 month ceramic, and it kind of gives people, because a lot of people are still new to it and don't understand, especially on like the commercial side.
Right.
Like, it makes a difference. It keeps your
Oh,
vehicles looking clean, keeps you looking
yeah.
more professional, and then when it starts to wear off, then they see it like, oh, we want that back.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
What is something relatively inexpensive, under $100, that has made a positive impact on your life and or business?
Wrap glove ghost, 100%. Um, Besides squeegees and monkey strip buffers, like those those three things right there, yellow tool squeegees, wrap glove, and monkey tail buffers are my go-to under $100 that have made by far the biggest impact on what we have.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't actually tried the Ghost. I've been using the newer Pain is Dead Ultimate gloves for since I think it was like 2019.
Yeah,
I got a couple and I've kind of stuck with them since. But I believe
I think I don't know. I used Pain is Dead's glove when they first came out with them. They were a little bit thinner than the yellow wrap gloves, so I like the comfort of the thickness of the wrap glove. And
yeah, I
then when
think
they
that
made
comes down to preference. Like if you like a thicker glove, you might
yeah
fall into the wrap glove camp, and then if you like the thinner glove, because I always use like the super thin Avery ones before that.
yeah
So if you like the thinner gloves, like the Pain is Dead stuff, I feel like you might fit more into that camp.
yeah, I think that's where the biggest differential between those two are. But man, that wrap glove goes, especially when you get a brand new one. That thing is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard. The opposite of that, what about something expensive?
I have to say, training and classes, certifications.
I like it.
I mean, beyond my equipment, my printers, laminators, stuff like that, which are just equipment costs. I think for me, the best thing that anyone can invest in is classes and certifications. I get the fact that there are a lot of people who have certifications who do shoddy work, but um, I was listening to something this morning, and it said that, um, and I think this is a good analogy that money doesn't money doesn't make you one way or the other; it just exposes you. So if you're a good person, money exposes more good. If you're a bad person, money exposes more bad. I think the certifications do the same exact thing. Any test, I mean, any certification is a test. So you can study for a test and then still not have the knowledge of it. You can do whatever you want, pass the test, and do all that. I just think that it shows a concerted effort that you're willing to put money into your craft. I do feel personally that the attrition rate should be higher. So if they have to bump the acceptance from 80 to 90, um, so be it. I think you would weed out a lot of people that are on that bubble, that do shoddy work and as opposed to doing really good work. Because I think between 80 to 90, that level of skill on those tests would whittle away some of those guys, to be able to have those certifications, like really be stout.
Yeah. Well, I think they have to deal with that fine line of you only have 2 to 3 days of
Oh
training.
yeah, I
Um,
got it.
and then also, if it's too hard, people won't go. And like from our standpoint of installers that have been around, like it sounds great, but you think of it from the business of the manufacturer or the company that is running those classes. There has to be some sort of uh, attainable goal there. Um,
I understand that part. That's the part that I'll go. You and guys like you and I will go round and round with those guys going, get better. Like at the end of the day, I used to shoot. I used to shoot competitive three gun, and I would always be on these forums and saying, well, can't they have a handicap on the guys who are just entering as opposed to the guys that are open? And the answer that I always got that always pissed me off, but I understand it now, is get better. Like if you want to win, get better. And so that was one of the things where it's like if you want to pass and you want to have these accreditations, and you want to have these you know the things that you put on your sleeves and stuff like that, then get better. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a skilled craft. The
yeah,
problem is it's not rocket science, but it sure as shit is a skill craft. And so you better put the work into that. And I think one of the core values that we have here at Image is excellence. And I ask my guys all the time, they're like, will this work? And I'm like, is it excellent? We're never going to be perfect. I mean, every rap has a flaw in it. But at the same time, if you just strive for excellence, I think it's one of those things where, you'll get close to where you need to be.
I like it. All right. So, what is something that you believe wholeheartedly that others might disagree with?
Everything in your life is a direct result of a choice that you make. Everything in your life, whether it's a car accident, whether it's, man, I think there's a very few small caveats to that where somebody might get a disease that, cancer that wasn't brought on by some, I don't know. Well, my mom had cancer. My mom always tells me this. She goes, it was because of choices that I made. And this particular kind of cancer, it was because of choices that she made. So, but I'm talking about all the things that you have, whether you succeed in life, whether you don't succeed in life, whether you have a good job, whether you don't have a good job, whether you have a good marriage, you don't have a good marriage, whether your kids are horrible, whether your kids are great. All those are choices that you've made. All those are a direct result of the choices that you've made.
So what you're saying is people should be accountable.
100%. But I don't know if you saw my post the other day that it's not only being accountable, but it's a willingness to be accountable. Like if somebody were to come and tell you, hey, you're not doing this and why, this isn't a good look for you. You have to be open to going, you know what, you're right.
Yes. Yeah. Willing to learn. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what steps do you take to refocus?
Man, this is a tough one for me because this happens a lot. I don't think I have actively found something that I do. I think I do more of the whole grit and bear it and just kind of try to keep pushing through it. Doesn't work all the time. I have notes on my computer all along the bottom right here that says do the effing work. Facebook doesn't pay the bills. Schedule, plan, execute, do your job. Only because I have found myself at times just being on Facebook and just scrolling, and it's like, what are you doing? Like this is your office. It's not home. It's not couch. It's not, you're not on that. Why are you even on social media at that particular time of the day? If you got work to do, if you don't have work to do, I guess it's okay. I mean, I would think of some other resources to be able to do it, but I'm just little reminders like that. But like I said, I struggle with it a lot. And I don't think I have an actual thing, but I heard Blake say the other day he does push-ups or something like that. When somebody on your podcast said that, and I was like, that's a good idea. Maybe I should go do that. Go work out, go run up the steps, do something. I don't know, figure something else out, get the endorphins or get the hormones to release something else so I can get my brain focused again.
Yeah, so this is one of those that's big for me. Like I really have trouble with ADD and focusing in general. I always just set a time, follow the dopamine, set a time, and it kind of goes back to that discipline where if I hit that time and go back to work, then I'm going to do things 100 times better than if I just toughed it out and just kind of went through the motions. That's kind of one of those things that just kind of works for me, is just follow whatever is gaining your focus for the moment. Say, hey, I'm going to take 10 minutes, I'm going to get unfocused, deal with it, and then at 1 o'clock, I'm back to it. And when 1 o'clock hits, you get up, and I always am 100% better if I do that.
You need to try that. Yeah,
I think in my mind it kind of goes back to that discipline is, hey, you're setting a time, you're telling yourself you're going to get back at that time, and when you do it, it's, all right, I followed through with it, now let's do better.
Yeah, I tell my daughters all the time, I am blessed to have two amazing daughters that are my own, and I have two amazing daughters that are stepdaughters and two amazing stepsons. And I tell them it's okay to get upset if something happens. It's okay to deal with all that, but give yourself a time frame. Be upset, cry, bitch, moan, whatever you got to do about it. But when you're done with that time frame, be done with it and move on, because things have to get done. Back to my dad's death. After my dad passed away, the next day, everybody's still going to work. Everybody's still moving. Everybody's still doing what they're doing. He didn't shut the world down, and you see it all the time. Like major influences or people like the Queen of England or whatever, like the world, I still went to work the next day. So nothing shuts down. So same thing with emotion, same thing with this. I think that time blocking thing might work. So I may even try that.
Nice. All right, last question here. What are some habits or behaviors that positively impact your life?
So when I was in my earlier years, I was a hothead, extremely hothead, road rage guy. That was me. When I met my wife, and we really started, going in the direction of where we were going into now, she's a very big processor. So when we had our first argument, she walked into the bathroom, shut the door. She said, "I'm not talking to you. I'm going to process this." I went full crazy. I was like wanting to punch walls, because that was always been my path. I'd always seen violence and things like that in my childhood and in my first marriage, and that was always a thing: punching walls, slamming doors, peeling out, doing all that stuff. But the first 3 or 4 years, I had to learn how to change how I saw things. And so now, today in my shop, if something goes wrong, I look at it as a puzzle. Life is a puzzle. Everything has a solution. You just have to figure out what that solution is. So when my guys come to me, "Hey, I broke a tail light, or I broke a clip," I'm like, "All right, well, let's figure out how to fix it." Like, that's the biggest thing for me, is just understanding that things are going to happen. Take a deep breath. It's a puzzle piece. Let's figure out how to fix the puzzle, and then go from there.
I like that. Yeah, take a step back, kind of cool off and figure out, think with a level head.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Joe, that was the last question. Real quick, where can anyone find Image Grafix and the work that you do online?
So our Instagram is Image Grafix, GEGRAFIX on Instagram. It's Image Grafix HOU on Facebook, and on Twitter it's Image Grafix HTX.
All right, perfect. Anything else you want to add before we sign off here?
No, man, I'm truly honored to be on the show.
The pleasure is all ours. I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time.
It's super cool to be able to see, guys like you trying to open up a little bit more and talking to some guys in the industry. I'm just, like I said, I'm beyond honored to be able to be on the show with some of the other guys that you've had on here. They're all hitters. So looking forward to seeing your success, growing, hearing more of your podcasts, and seeing how that goes.
Thank you. Thank you again. And with that, that's episode 4 of The Missing Link. Thank you again. Take care.